Hello and a big warm welcome to you. Welcome to the Urban Penguin channel. My name is Andrew Mallet and today we're going to dive out to our command line shell. I know we do that every single time, but we are really going to be looking at the shell and the shell in a lot more detail today. What I want to do is make sure that you understand the difference in Bash between a child shell and a subshell, because there are big differences. But we also need to understand when we use a child shell and when and how we use a subshell. Come on, let's find that command line. And here we are on our glorious command line. A command line where we're going to learn the differences between child shells and subshells. We want to make it clear to you so you really do become the Bash gurus you want to be. Now I'm running this on an Ubuntu 20.04 system. Starting in our normal way, printing the hostname ctl command, we can see then that we're Ubuntu 20.04 and patch level 5. But I say it's not really important, the distribution that we are using. The first thing that we're going to do is go through and investigate some of our features of our parent Bash shell. We're going to go through and look at a variable. This variable is called bash underscore subshell. So we can use echo and $bash. Now if I hit the tab completion here, we don't get any completion. But if I put the underscore, we'll try one more character and try typing again. Well, again, the tab key is not allowing me to complete. But double tab, I can see then the variable names that I matched so far. We want to investigate a variable called subshell. So bash underscore subshell. When I hit the big enter key on this, we can see it's set to 0. So we are currently not in a subshell. A subshell, as we'll find out, is a complete clone of the parent shell. Unlike when we go through and investigate a child shell, which is a completely new and unassociated shell. To show you the idea of a subshell, if we create an alias, doesn't really matter what alias we create, but I'm going to create an alias just called my. I'm not very creative this morning. And we can have it equal then a command shortcut. So we're going to have cp-i. So my alias is created. And of course, I can print those aliases to the screen using the alias command. But the alias is a property of this parent shell, and it's not in any of my login scripts. So as I go through then and type the aliases, we can see aliases are sorted by alphabetical order, so it just appears down the bottom. Now, aliases are a property of the current shell, much in the same way as when we create local variables. Local variables are only available to the local shell. So if I go through then and put fruit equals apple, that's a variable that's available to this shell, but is not available to child shells, much in the same way as our alias. So these, the local variable and the alias, are local to my shell. Opening up then a child shell, we have a completely separate bash process. When I look at PS, we can see that we're running PS inside of a bash shell, inside of a bash shell. So we think, yes, we have got nested shells, but this nesting is known as child shells. When I go through and take a look at my alias didn't come through, so I don't have my alias. And when I try and look at my variable, echo $fruit, we're going to have no value to the fruit variable because it didn't navigate down. It didn't get inherited into the child shell. Again, we can go through and investigate that bash variable. So echo $bash underscore su and tab. And we can see then that the subshell is set to 0. We are still not in a subshell. This is a child shell, a brand new, completely separated, unassociated shell. We can see with PS that we need to exit out of our shell. So that then takes me back to my main or parent shell. And we're going to look at the idea now of our subshells. A subshell is a complete clone of the parent shell. So if I go through then and create the subshell using parentheses, and if we start off by echoing that magic variable, obviously we don't need it, but bash underscore subshell, we can see now that we are in a subshell, or the subshell was created temporarily, only for the existence of our parentheses. We can go through and start grouping commands together. So inside of my subshell, if I look at my ps command, we can see then that we are in a bash shell inside of a bash shell. So we can see that we are creating that additional shell, but it's a complete clone of the parent. As a clone, when I look at my aliases, look at that. We maintain the alias my. Subshells are complete clones of the parent shell, which also means, of course, if I go through then and try and print out the fruit variable, even though the fruit variable wasn't exported to the environment, it still becomes available to the cloned parent shell that becomes my subshell. Now, why do we use this? Well, it really is just for grouping commands together. If I group commands together, I can send the whole lot to the background with the ampersand. So putting the ampersand after our parentheses. Now, it's not really useful for something as simple as the commands we're running there. But if we look at the sleep command, here we're waiting 5 seconds. But if I don't group my commands together in a subshell, then I have to wait the first 5 seconds before I get to background the second sleep command. I'm just running the ls command now just to make sure that all of those sleep processes have ended. And if I run this then as a subshell, so sleep 5, semicolon, sleep 5, and then put the ampersand after my parentheses, the whole lot now is running in the background. And obviously it's going to run for the 2 sets of 5 seconds, so my 10 seconds. Again, just running ls, waiting for those jobs to finish. We can see now that they have finished. So a subshell allows me to very easily background a group of commands. But another really useful part of subshells is where we want to, let's say, create date-based extensions for our backups. So let's copy host through to host.$ because we want to read the output of the subshell, date plus %f. Hit the big enter key, and we're going to find now that we've got a host file that has then the date as a suffix to the file. So hopefully you've learned a little bit more about the bash shell. You understand perhaps a little bit more about some of the commands that you have been running, and we can identify the differences between child shells and subshells.
All that is left to say is thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this, then you are probably sadder than I first thought. For more of this drivel, please subscribe, like and comment to @TheUrbanPenguin.